Hello. Sorry, that took me just a second to get all set up. Um, we are getting ready to tweet that we are here so that people understand. I am a little bit late to start, but that is okay. This is 8 games a week. My D&D and Q&A. And P and Q&A? But we are going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And I am going to tweet that I am going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, which is really funny and amusing. Let's see, starting my stream, I like to say the things that I type. For D&D and Q&A on Twitch. Come watch. Hashtag D&D. And for some reason, this tweet wants to take its sweet time. But there we are. Okay, we are ready to start. Like, formally start. We've been here a minute. Oh, and I forgot to do the thing. Actually, let's change this. Can't do this. First, we have to make a copy so that I can go back and refer to the old ones like I do sometimes. Alright, here we are. 8 games a week, episode 12. Hello and good evening to everybody. Or good morning, depending on where you are. Good afternoon. Guten Tag. Laku Noche. Etc. Alright, Out of the Abyss, we haven't done this in a while. Things have been a little wacky with Omicron, and the school club has been kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern. So here's what we're going to do, and this is an idea I came up with recently. Start over. So this is going to be a tricky prospect, but we are going to do the Tenets of Bane, which is one of my favorite adventures, League Adventures, because there's 4 parts to it, and you can run it basically as like a mini intro adventure, and that's what I intend to do. Intending to onboard new players. So I'm hoping to get more people into the club. There's been talk about maybe getting more students interested in Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm excited. I would love to do that. Let's just see if that pans out. So my Tuesday games, I have to be very judicious in how I share that because Looney is in it, and I don't want to spoil anything. Hey yo, I'm watching, but don't worry about spoilers. I haven't slept a wink all weekend, so I can barely understand Spanish, let alone English. Okay, well, I'll do this. Demon the Fallen. Ooh. I don't have to necessarily censor that like in its entirety. Demon the Fallen, a game where you play the escaped fallen angel from a rupture in hell. A lot of fun. So I'm not going to reveal anything, but I got to do homework. And my homework consists of watching The Prophecy with Christopher Walken. Dogma? I don't think Christopher Walken is in that. Or he might be. I can't remember. And then Not Constantine. I don't know. I know there's another movie that's kind of in that. Technically, End of Days, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, would qualify as a good inspiration for this game, but I don't much care for that movie. It's like all right. The Prophecy, Dogma. I know there's another one of like this kind of. Let me think. You know what I'm gonna do though is it's adjacent and it works well enough, but I have not watched John Carpenter's Vampires in a really long time, and I feel like that's good inspiration. Because in this setting, there's not only fallen angels, there's also vampires and werewolves and mummies and witches and wizards. It's kind of crazy. So I feel like that works. I can watch John Carpenter's Vampires, and it is suitable. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that works. I wish there was something that was more like an anime in this vein, like anime question mark. And there's so what would be a good one for this is X 1999. It's suitably depressing, very apocalyptic. It would fit very much in this theme. And actually, to be quite honest with you, I need to watch Highlander. What the hell was that the name of that one? I heard you say The Prophecy, and my addled brain confused it with The Omen, because The Omen got named La Profecía in Spanish, and a chill ran down my spine. Those movies are freaking terrifying. Yeah, they did a really good job of just being like horrifying in those movies. And I have this like I'm gonna admit something here on this stream. I have this little habit. I don't watch horror movies. It's like I might have watched like a half dozen horror movies in my lifetime. I'm not fond of like sitting there and being scared necessarily. I'll do it, but it's not my thing. What I really, really like doing is reading about horror movies and reading through their synopsis. Now, I have watched Cabin in the Woods and I love that movie, but there are parts of it that kind of get me a little squeamish. Just to kind of let you know where my tolerance for that kind of thing is. There's a lot of horror movies that have come out in the last, let's say, 15 years that are just torture porn, and I think a lot of people refer to them as such, and I'm not down for that. That being said, shoot, where was I going with all of that? I had a point I was going to make. Oh yeah, The Omen. The Omen is in that line of movie, which obviously, duh, if I was going to watch a movie about fallen angels and such, actually, The Exorcist is a perfect one, and that's one that I think I can watch. Like, I don't think that one is like it's interesting and it's scary, but I don't think it's like the kind of scary that would make me shy away. So that's another one, and just with the idea of faith and the supernatural kind of colliding in a way that kind of makes sense for this is good. Um, that's right. I still haven't looked it up or figured it out. There's a Highlander anime that not a lot of people know about. And although it's not exactly the same thing, it would be perfect. So I got to rewatch that Highlander anime because it's like it's not Endgame because that was that movie. The Search for Vengeance, the aptly named Highlander, The Search for More Money. A good excuse to get you to do the Friday the 13th marathons on Halloween. A fine tradition. I love to uphold. I like Friday the 13th, and I've never had a problem with watching those movies. I actually like them. I don't consider them horror in that they're kind of more schlock horror. If you want a good horror movie that is in the vein of Friday the 13th, like Halloween is a horror movie. Friday the 13th is schlock, and it's fun schlock. I love watching. But yeah, it's more silly than gratuitous. Although it can get gratuitous on occasion. cool. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool inspirations for. So let's talk about that for a second. World of Darkness. So in the hallowed days of 1991, when most of the world that was into tabletop role playing was interested in things like Dungeons and Dragons or the very nascent Warhammer at that point. I guess it had been around for a little while. And like science fiction and fantasy, and I think there were a couple of Star Wars role playing games hanging out there, but there were very few that were. I shouldn't say there were a few. I haven't done that research, but there weren't many prominently displayed that were about modern day, even if it was like this weird modern day or what have you. And the World of Darkness, as it started with Vampire the Masquerade, was fascinating for a lot of reasons. It was a really cool setting, still is to a degree. There's some issues with the people who made it, but I'm not going to bring those up right now. But it's a fascinating thing, and as a story, as a setting, it's great. The meta-textual context to all of that is that the World of Darkness really opened up two things. It opened up a world of role-playing that was not just combat-focused. The system is fantastic for doing things that are just... You can get into a further nitty-gritty, and your character sheet isn't just like, how hard do I hit the ogre? Although that's fine too. I'm not naysaying any of that. I'm just saying it's a great system for being a human being in the modern world and just kind of like living and surviving in the context of a world where like your first instinct isn't to grab a mace and smack a thing. It started with Vampire, which was followed by Werewolf. So it's Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Mage the Ascension, I believe, was the next one, and then Wraith the Oblivion, where you play a ghost, and so on and so forth. One of the last ones they did before they blew up the setting, literally, just 50 apocalypses going at the same time. But when that all occurred, there were two of the settings that they put out. So it's a Vampire to Werewolf to Mage, etc., etc. And then the last two they put out were Demon and Orpheus. And Orpheus was basically Ghostbusters. It was a very weird Ghostbusters, but it was basically Ghostbusters with a little bit more psychic energy thrown in. But we're not going to talk about Orpheus. A really interesting game, but not one that I was really like super keen on. I played it a couple of times. It was fun. But Demon the Fallen, why is it doing that? Let's stop it with that. Any Demon the Fallen. Like, at first I didn't think I was gonna like it, but it's all about coming back from hell, sensory deprived, and fallen from the light of God. Now, I don't believe in God. I'm agnostic if you had to ask me to give myself a label. But I love, like, obviously this is fantasy, and I love the idea that there were angels created by a big capital G God, and that they were abandoned by him because they wanted to kind of raise humanity up because they saw potential, and they didn't want humans just to be like sad saps walking around Eden for eternity. So they rose up, and it's very like it's very Paradise Lost. If you've ever read Paradise Lost, there's a lot of themes carried over from that, and it's a lot of sympathy for the devil, literally and figuratively. But the whole idea is good excuse. Oh no, I already read that. But the whole idea is like you play these like exiled angels who finally come back out of the abyss, which is, it's not fire and pitchforks, it's just sensory deprivation, because it's the worst thing you could do to an angel. And the neat thing about it is it doesn't happen in a vacuum, so to speak. All of this is happening because the vampires are causing such a ruckus, and the werewolves are causing such a ruckus that they were the ones that ruptured the seal of the abyss and let all of the angels and so on out. Now, there have already been demons, fallen angels, so on, that were summoned out of hell in the Middle Ages, because the Middle Ages was all about wacky magic and crazy happenstance. And they still exist and have been around for hundreds, if not almost thousands of years, and are causing a ruckus as well. And so, of course, they realize that the fallen angels are out of the abyss and all of that business. So it's an interesting setting with a lot of interesting conflict. But okay, that's a thing that I've been really heavily doing some homework on, and that's something that I think I'll be doing something with very soon. But we'll move on. Dawn of Thay didn't get to play last week, so I think we're going to go ahead and keep the same notes. Hopefully everything will go well this week. It was just a little bit of a snafu that we didn't get to play. Dreams of Myth and Ultranor, we actually got to play last week, and it was a lot of fun. Let's see. Currently about to fight Garvardi in the 5-room dungeon. Will face clones of I'm just gonna say former team mates. Marlowe and Resi, that's right. And as mentioned last week, Marlowe and Resi are characters who used to play, whether the player dropped out or the player swapped out a character. These are old characters that are coming back, just because I think that's an interesting little moment. And I kind of hinted that they would be there too with the Garup broke 12 mirrors and got 12 magic items. 2 of them are cursed. They don't know which ones. That's going to be fun. So I think we can drop all of this business. I was going to have... They actually are going to skip a room, because I was going to have them do this big button room, but it feels like they spent enough time in the mirror room and it was kind of puzzle-esque. So I'm just going to skip it, and we're going to go straight to Garvardi, and that's going to be fun. People might die, but I feel like this is, thematic. This is a big boss battle. All right, we're going to talk about the Thursday game. Sam, if you're watching, don't. Or, I don't know, go fix yourself a sandwich. So War Drums of Mount Nimrod. Last week, I'm just going to write this out. So everything went more or less the way I thought it did. So let me see. So I should even just this was a prediction that came true. So Rune cut Runeheart, that happened. Freeze Oliad killed Shantico, that happened. Shantico Essence shunted to Balgor Wastelands. That happened. Balgor Wasteland will act as Spire's Vicinity Last. That's going to be really awesome. Now there's a race to the essence of Shantico. So Shantico was an evil demigod that used to be a god, but he was so much of an annoyance that the other gods kind of batted him down, and he became this kind of weakened demigod. And so his whole thing was to sow discord, which he did, and regain power, which he did not. And so the group finally destroyed the Runeheart, which was a very powerful magical artifact. It did contain the soul of Zoliad, the elven archmage, who is now on a mission to do very bad things. And so Shantico died, but Shantico's divine spark, it has flown to the Balgor Wastelands. And to fill you in, the Balgor Wastelands are if you combine Mad Max with Dune, that's pretty much it. It's just Mad Max plus Dune. Just without the motorcycles, though. I think there's some air skips that people use. But yeah, there's massive sandworms. The desert is irradiated with magical destructive power. Things are mutated. Magic goes crazy. And they have to go to the center of the Balgor Wastelands to be able to basically beat Zoliad to the essence of Shantico. and keep him from being like a powerful archmage demigod himself, which would not be a good thing. There's going to be all kinds of different things happening. In fact, I think I wrote a bunch of notes about it. But yeah, we kind of missed the chance to like have Sunder Blackrock be a part of this process. So we're just gonna remove that. But there are cultists who are gonna try and revive Shantico because that's still on the table, but not likely. They're gonna be obnoxious enough to get in the way. There will be a schism within the Nimro Empire. Could be opportunity for peace. I'm gonna leave that. That's something that the group can figure out. For the future, showdown with an ancient elven palace preserved by dimensional anomaly, where Shantico the Mortal, Zoliad, and group will fight. The group will fight. Fourth corner may be a demon lord that owns Shantico a final favor. Maybe Mantis. Mantis is a demon lord. I think he's a demon and not a devil. Very interesting guy. I will go into more detail at a later date. What am I missing? Oh yeah. Before going to Balgor Wasteland, group must supply and may meet with or make order from Gertrude. So there will be a return of Gertrude, the beloved potion shop owner, and that'll be fun. So let me write myself homework, and I don't have a lot of time to do this because this is for Thursday. But homework: figure out what Gertrude wants to do to help. Consider including a younger clone of her as an antagonist. Question mark? I feel like that's maybe like expanding the legacy of Gertrude a little bit too much. I don't know. Oh, I'm having a brainstorm. Oh boy. Okay, Sam, if you're listening to this, like, don't listen to this. This is okay. I know what I want to do. So no, I reject it. I will absolutely use Gertrude in this. Gertrude origin as Archmage. Actually, oh my god, this is turning out better than I thought. Origin as Lizard Mage. I guess Arch Lizard Mage. And consort to Zoliad. Yes, this is fitting together so nicely. I cannot. So, multitude of clones exist in multiple dimensions as potion shop owners. Poition. That's not how you spell potion. Now here's where it gets tricky. Do I like? So I want to include this because this is going to explain a lot about the kind of connected timelines of a lot of my games. However, I don't want this to unsettle the players. Like, I don't want Gertrude to go from being like this nice old shop owner to being like this ultimate evil. It's gonna kind of taint that legacy. So let me think. Okay. Yeah. So this is where everything's gonna intersect. So Gertrude So let's just call it Gertrude, original Gertrude. consumed by Pontifex. Clones autonomous. I guess clones are autonomous if I wanted to not make that a sentence fragment. Original Gertrude. So original Gertrude is nice and kind and was once a check on Zoliad's power and what's the word I'm looking for? Ambition. Pontifex. Secret to be revealed. Maybe a sub-boss fight to finally defeat. Question mark? Now I'm starting to think, do I want the Pontifex to be the ultimate bad guy? No, this is not quite. Not quite. Some things to think about. Anyways, as you might be able to tell, there's some really heavy context to all of this that wouldn't make sense unless you've been following 3 of my different games that I've been running. But suffice to say, this is going to be really awesome to pull off if I can make it happen. I like where this is going, but I'm just gonna homework, expand this idea a little more. All right, and now we're gonna scoot down. So Sam, you can listen and watch from here. I mean, I don't know how you would know that I said that or read that, but Peril and Abir, recent games, 6 layers. Last layer, that was a misspelling. Fusion golems? What did I end up doing? No, we haven't done that yet. Okay, yeah, this is what they'll do. They just got done fighting a thing, I think. Yeah, they just fought some, what do you call it? Sahuagin. Okay, so considerations. Next game. So we might just start a new campaign very soon, as soon as they have the big fight against the Boxa. Witchlight. Curse of Strahd. Some things to consider. Alright. I mean, there's not a lot to plan for the Friday game, so I think we're good. The Adventurers League game, I'm gonna keep everything going just as it has been. We didn't play my game last week. One of the other players actually started running his own Curse of Strahd game, and it was very, very good. I'm really hoping to start to peel people away from it now and let both things happen, but we'll see how things go. However, if nothing else, it's going to be fun. People are throwing around the idea that we do 1 game on, 1 game off. So I do Tomb of Annihilation 1 week. The other player does Curse of Strahd the next week, and I get to play, and that should honestly be fun. But we'll see how that all pans out, because I know part of the reason is that we're trying to make 2 tables so that newcomers will have a way to play that's not going to be heavily burdened by lots of context that can't be explained. Let's see, Magic Castle, Substitute Omu. Yeah, we're still working on that. Sunday, Monsters Dwell Here. We didn't play, so it's the same thing. Okay. But I do have an update. Update. Group made it to laboratory where sentinels were made from dissidents. Sentinels basically copies of Dark Lords from Marvel Comics. If you wonder what Dark Lords I mean from Marvel Comics, I'm talking about like those creepy monster spider things from the end of Howard the Duck. So they have to fight a bunch of those. Considerations. If sentinels can be turned back, freed persons may give more context to New World. And the scope of its involvement in the Blood War. Now, the Blood War, in case you're wondering, is an eternal struggle between demons and devils. Now, it sounds really arbitrary on the face of it that demons would be fighting devils, but in the cosmology of Dungeons and Dragons, they're very different things. So they're both evil, obviously, but you have demons who are chaotic evil. They come from a roiling mass of a chaotic nothingness. Basically, they just are kind of born into this world and are created wholesale, constantly all the time. Devils are lawful evil. They adhere to very orderly kind of structures and so on. And the only way for a devil to appear is if like let's say another devil, and I'll get to the chicken and egg issue with that in a moment. But if another devil makes a pact with a human for their soul, once that soul is claimed after pact is said and done, that soul goes to Avernus, which is the first layer of hell. So devils have hell, demons have the abyss. Goes into the first level of hell to be turned into a very low level demon, and then devil, turned into a low level devil, and will eventually make its way up the corporate structure of hell until it is potentially upgraded into a archdevil. Happens very rarely, as you might imagine, but basically, hell is corporate America. You work in a machine that grinds you to paste, and if you're lucky, you get promoted so that you can operate the machinery that grinds other people into paste. And, you know, something capitalism. But anyways, we're going to introduce the Blood War into the Sunday game, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And the group is going to be figuring out how they navigate wanting to kill Uzus, the evil god, even though he is fighting against the Blood War, and probably has made a deal with the devils to fight against the demons who are right at his doorstep. That makes the most sense, and I think that's probably where a lot of trouble has been born out. And so we can play a lot with how successful has Uzus the evil god been in outsmarting or at least even dealing with Asmodeus, the most important and pivotal archdevil. And that's a thing for another time, but Asmodeus, I'm just going to put a little thing. How is he involved? Because it's very likely that Asmodeus is directly making deals with Uzus. Making deals with Uz. But to what end? Question mark. All right. So we've finished doing the kind of the planning part. We can delete this because it's on the other document. Let me just go back over this. So Sunday, Saturday, we either didn't play or like we either didn't play a lot of games. Something Rock Me Asmodeus. Awesome. um we either didn't play or there was just a handful of games to plan for. I've been reading a lot about Demon the Fallen to get into that mood, and I'm really excited. But we're done with the planning stage. Here we are. I wish I had a little bit more time and energy to actually. Well, you know what? Let's not be hasty and count our devil chickens before they've hatched. Now is the time for questions and answers. I love you, Asmodeus. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to tell my coworker about that tomorrow. He'll love that joke. So anyhow, now is the time for question and answer. If anybody has any questions, Looney, I know that you are potentially indisposed and maybe not up to asking questions, so do not feel pressured to do so. But if I have people in my chat that are not bots and might be interested in asking questions, now would be the time to do so. Anything you want, relatively related to Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop role playing. Do you want to know more about World of Darkness? Do you want to know more about the Forgotten Realms or the Palladium fantasy setting? I am here to answer your questions. Anything you might want. And no worries, I think I can brain fart at least one question. Well, yeah, shoot. But I was going to say, if I don't get any more questions past that, if we're kind of like maybe short on content for this week, I can make a thing. Like I can write out a magic item or monster or something that might be kind of fun and interesting and most of all useful to my future planning. So do not worry if the questions are late this week. But again, if you're here and not a bot and maybe interested in, let me think, sorry, all of a sudden this music seemed like it was a little louder than I was hoping for. So let's just titrate it down just a skosh. Just a skosh. My speakers are too good, I think. You know, it's funny. I could ask so many people to come to this stream, but like virtually all of them would be in a game that I run. That's just kind of the circle I run with. The number of people that I know that I don't play Dungeons and Dragons or some other variation of that with is really low. It's really small. Hmm. Now I'm kind of sitting here brainstorming an idea, and I want to kind of think about this for a second. But I'm thinking if I want to make statistics for some kind of a really devastating monster, and not do another Monster Hunter monster. I want to do that again because I was really happy with the way my Magnum Aloe came out. But I'm thinking I might make some kind of like a devastating monster for my Sunday group to fight. But okay, I have a question. Since we're doing demonic talk, I wonder, is there anything in D&D that might resemble Dante's Inferno in terms of setting as related to hell, or anything Divine Comedy related, or failing that, anything Hieronymus Bosch related? So let's talk about that. Let's see, Dante and Bosch in D&D. So, yes, as I mentioned, Asmodeus is the archdevil in charge of hell. Very much like Dante's Inferno, there are 9 layers of hell. The difference here is that there is not a Lucifer at the center of it, although there should be. I mean, I think that would be very cool. So let's just write that out. No Lucifer. But there's a lot of other things that are very much related to the Dante kind of idea of hell. Now, just to touch on this slightly so that I don't forget to go back to it, Hieronymus Bosch stuff, question mark? Basically, you could very likely see parts of hell that are just that they're just absurdist, ridiculous. Torture is kind of what is going on, but like it also just looks, outlandish and geometrical in ways that kind of, make you feel uncomfortable. So yes, it just depends on which circle of hell. Now, before I go much further, there is a whole book that has come out called Descent into Avernus. Avernus being the first layer of hell in this cosmology. And I want to kind of talk about, let me see. So at various times in the past of D&D, the River Styx runs basically just outside of what is considered Avernus, the first layer of hell. And just like you would imagine, the River Styx makes you forget who you are, and it turns you basically back into a soul eventually, if you're not careful. But it is really interesting because in recent times, basically, hell and the River Styx have been moved or manipulated to be directly next to some Hellmaw from the Abyss. So then Avernus just becomes a battlefield. In ages past, Avernus used to be this glittering city that was just a testament to the avarice. Just that's probably why it's called Avernus. The avarice and success of demons, where they just showed off all of the glittering gold and greatness that they were able to basically trick mortals out of. But it became a battlefield, especially after it was given over to Zariel, the fallen angel, to turn it into a big battlefield to fight against the demons who were trying to take it over. Now, real quick though, sorry, I'm looking to see if I can find something that talks about the different... No, I think I'm in the wrong book. Hold up. So I just want to make sure I'm not telling people the wrong thing, because I like to think I know a lot about the Dungeons and Dragons settings, but there's like little details that I tend to forget. But let's see. So there's the Abyss, there's Carceri, there's Hades, there's Gehenna. So there's different kinds of hells, but there's the 9 hells. So it starts with Avernus, the big battlefield. Then there's Dis, the second layer of hell. Let me see, who is the... Oh yeah, Dispater is the leader. Menaros is the third layer. It's a big bog. This is a labyrinth of canyons. Let's see, who's in charge? see. So it looks like Mammon, as we all know, Mammon is kind of like the embodiment of greed, is the archdevil of Minaros, and he takes the form of a giant serpent, and not a machine from Chrono Trigger. Phlegathos is a fiery landscape, so that one's kind of like your traditional fiery inferno. Um, so there's Belial and Fierna, who are father and daughter, and they control the fourth layer. The fifth layer is Stygia, and that's a realm of ice. And I believe, yes, Geryon. No? Geryon was the former ruler. I'm just reading out of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Archduke Levistus. No, he's not it either. No, okay, so Levistus betrayed Asmodeus, and then Geryon took his place, and then Geryon was dismissed, and Levistus was brought back, and that's exactly why I'm saying that this is just corporate America in a nutshell. Malbolg, and if these are starting to sound like levels out of the original Doom, there's a reason for that. Malbolg is a 6 layer. Let's see. Huh. So Glacia is the current ruler of Malbolg. Doesn't really say much about it, but it used to be controlled by Moloch. And some of these creatures, Belial, Moloch, Mammon, they're all biblical. Maladamini is the 7th layer. Ruin-covered wasteland, dead cities. That's kind of neat. And this one is ruled by Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. We all know him, right? Especially if we played Symphony of the Night. Cania is the 8th layer, another icy hellscape. This one is controlled by Mephistopheles. Finally, there's Nessus. So if you ever hear something... Oops, I'm kind of giving the game away, aren't I? No, never mind, sorry. Anyways, if you ever hear of Nessus or something that is Nessian, that is the 9th layer of hell, or at least in this context. So you might have a Nessian hellhound, and that is a more powerful hellhound than a normal hellhound. But Nessus is where Asmodeus lives. A realm of dark pits whose walls are set with fortresses. So basically, it's just like an infinite pit. But the fortresses go along the pit that spirals down. And I think at the very bottom, if I'm not mistaken, Asmodeus has his true form, which is like a miles-long serpent that's coiled up. Oh, I know Beelzebub from Daima Kaimura, knowing this fucking boss, let me tell ya. Because who is Beelzebub in Ghouls and Ghosts? It's like I know there were insects involved. Like, is he just a giant bug, or? Yeah, he is, isn't he? He's like the big giant bug you have to fight just before one of the bosses. Like, it's him, and then I think it's is it Lucifer in that one? But yeah, he is obnoxious. But the curious thing is a lot of this actually goes right into Demon the Fallen. And a lot of the same motifs exist. And what I find fascinating about that game is that, it does away with the idea of a fiery inferno and just says, no, the worst thing you could ever experience is to live through sensory deprivation for what is effectively thousands of years. Oops. And I'm trying to think, because I know Belial plays prominently in the Demon the Fallen, but there's others too. And I can't remember. But there's some neat ones. And just the idea that like some of the more prominent evil, because I think that's what let me just put it to you this way. What a lot of people forget. Yeah, the giantess fly, I remember. Yes. So to expand on this question, what people don't remember or learn, that's not their fault. I'm not saying this like people should know all of this stuff. But what people don't remember or learn is that like what a lot of people call Satan is so many different things. So there's like Satan, Beelzebub, Lucifer, Mephisto, or Mephistopheles. What are some other ones? Baal is another one. And so it depends on just who exactly you talk to. Are these all the same thing? Even Pazuzu. And the problem starts with the integration of pagan gods into Christianity. And there's a lot of pagan and let's call it New World gods integrated. That's how you get La Virgen de Guadalupe, for instance, if you're looking on the opposite side of the spectrum, not the evil side, but then you see all the integration, and all of a sudden, Christianity, and this is not an indictment, this is just how things have been for hundreds of years. Oops. This is just how Christianity has gained wacky lore. And when I say wacky lore, I'm not talking about like anything that anyone really cares about in the last 100 years. I'm talking about things like the Ars Goetia. I'm talking about things like Lucifuge Rofocale. I'm talking about things like who is that crazy bastard? Aleister, that's right, Aleister Crowley. And so if we look at like the period of time in which, you know, formative Christianity in the Middle Ages was trying to figure itself out, and looking to the ancient texts before the fall of the Roman Empire, and trying to figure themselves out as a world power, as a religion, as a kind of story to be told throughout the generations. A lot of people made up a lot of colorful, I don't want to say dumb, but colorful kind of stuff. And I love Dante's Inferno. Like, I'm not going to take that away. Dante's Inferno is great. But it is Bible fan fiction. But it's really good Bible fan fiction. I don't want to take away from how good Dante's Inferno is. But like any successful fan fiction, its own mythos gets carried away with it. Just like some of the people who added to the mythos of Lovecraft, a lot of the things we know to be Lovecraftian aren't made by Lovecraft. A lot of the creatures that were created came after Lovecraft was even no longer alive to create them. So like, I want to say Clark Ashton Smith, I believe, was one of them, and there were a handful of other people who added to the mythos and started creating a lot of things that were formative in the way people believe in, or not believe in, but like, partake in the mythos of Lovecraft. Similarly, Dante's Inferno started coming up with all of these fanciful ideas of like, what does it mean to go to hell? What happened to the enemies of God after they rebelled and were defeated? And what is their purpose? And so I don't know if I can say for certain that Dante was the first one to think of the idea of like, oh, demons are just the custodians of hell, and the purpose of hell is to punish sinners. Like, that might have been an idea before, but like never had it been so strongly codified. And so you have Dante's Inferno, Bible fan fiction, came up with a lot of really neat ideas. And in fact, from Dante's Inferno, we get the 4 elemental themes from Final Fantasy IV. Scarmiglione, Barbarizia, Milione, and Rubicante were all from Dante's Inferno. I don't know what inspired the development team for Final Fantasy IV for just randomly pluck those 4 things from Dante's Inferno. No other references to Dante's Inferno except for those 4 themes. And so all of a sudden you just, like, as we see the mythos of a lot of fantasy games borrow heavily from a lot of these sources. If we didn't have the Ars Goetia, we would not have Shin Megami Tensei or Persona. If we didn't have Dante's Inferno, we would not have a lot of the modern concepts of like demons and devils. Even in the playful way that you see them in fantasy games where you have to fight things like that. It really is fun seeing Dante Alighieri putting people from his personal life in hell just because he didn't like them. Motherfuckers like, yeah, take that. Guy who looked at me funny the other day. Yeah, he absolutely did. He put people to task like crazy. And it's wacky. It's wacky just how that took off. It's crazy how he was censored by the church and how he was eventually embraced by the church. But like, man, he was calling people out like crazy. And he was calling out corruption. And at a time where doing that would have got you killed, and I don't know how he survived. Maybe people just respected his writing just that much. But yeah, I mean, there you go. But in summation, yes, there's a lot of different things going on. I think if you wanted to have some fun with it, you could really start to throw some of those ideas into a D&D game and use them more than they already have been, and change the structure of the 9 layers of hell as they are ruled by Asmodeus. And instead have Lucifer at the center and like, hey, big guy, who you chewing on today? Because that could be pretty fun to like have that be a journey and not some big dimensional hellhole that's responsible for like the axis of law as it pertains to evil. But there's some fun stuff to it, you know. But really, like, I really want to highlight this. Look at all these different names and like tell me who's the big honcho. And different stories will tell you different things. Lucifer is Satan, is the devil, capital T, capital D. But then there's writings that will make them different people. Satan is not Lucifer, and vice versa. And shoot, like you can even play different versions of ghouls and ghosts and goblins, and I think there's a different person you have to fight. Like Azeroth, right, is the guy that's got the big mouth on his stomach, and that's another one, Azeroth, right? Or am I thinking of someone else? No, Astaroth. Azeroth is that's World of Warcraft. But yeah, Dante's Inferno, very formative. Hieronymus Bosch, I just love that iconography of just like the idea of hell being. It's like it's like someone mixed Dante's Inferno with the Yellow Submarine, and I know Hieronymus Bosch came way before Yellow Submarine, but I think it's funny to think about it that way. Just like whacked out, like dude must have been doing well. I shouldn't say that. That's kind of the cliche things. Like, man, you must have been really high when you came up with this one. Well, I'm sure he just came up with it, and he's a creative genius and not reliant on mind altering mushrooms. But it wouldn't make me surprised if I learned that Hieronymus Bosch at least did some mind altering substance once. Maybe some wormwood or some absinthe. Who knows? But okay. Let's see. Um, all right. And then, so that was a really long answer to a really good question. So thank you, Looney. If anybody else is in chat and is curious, do you want to ask me a question? Do you want to know more about Dungeons and Dragons? Is there a topic about tabletop role-playing games that you have been curious about? Doesn't have to be D&D. We've been talking a lot about World of Darkness recently. Really fun stuff going on there. And yeah, just I'm a question answering machine all of a sudden. I mean, depends on where you look. Stomach and Mouth Guy is named either Satan or Astaroth. Makayamura is inconsistent as fuck in that respect. Yeah, because what's the princess's name? Is it Prin Prin? It's been pretty consistently Prin Prin since I think after the first game, but it was like what, Guinevere or Gwen? I got another cue in relation to the last one, if that's okay. Yeah, absolutely. Keep the content coming. Um, while you're asking that question, I really want to rack my brain. I want to come up with a monster that's really neat and big, um, and I want it to have like a very deep meaning into my homebrew setting, but I can't think of what I want it to be. So I'm trying to think of what it is. I'm getting some ideas, and I'm kind of mulling some things over. Oh god, Prin Prin is another inconsistent mess. She's been Prin Prin, Guinevere, Ginevra, and God help us and deliver us, she's even been Princess of Huss. Whatever the hell that means. Yeah, I'm with you. That sounds sus. Sorry, I'm putting my computer through its paces, so if the music kind of clips out a little bit, do Among Us. Among Us? I mean, if they ever did a Dai Makaimura Among Us collaboration, I'd be all for it. Now, let's see. I'm gonna ask my friend about something because I want to maybe do some cross contamination like I like to do. Sorry, I'm asking the question. And actually, the friend that I didn't think knew might actually know this. Okay, so in relation to this is I'm reading this. In relation to the last question, is there anything in D&D that might tie into the concept of the many Buddhist hells? Because some of that shit is absolutely piss your pants terrifying. So no, it's funny. In the question that I was just asking my friend, it actually kind of pertained to that. No, there's not a lot done with that because there's Dungeons and Dragons has a really strained relationship with like doing some kind of silly takes on Asian culture. Um, and you know, a lot of people will hem and haw about that and talk about how um, you know we shouldn't take away that legacy from Dungeons and Dragons. But look, I'm not here to talk about that. I think there's a better way to do Asian culture stuff, and I think we're on the cusp of it. But anyways, no, the answer is in D&D there is not. However, there's a really excellent setting. So let me codify this. Is there a D&D version, let's say, of Buddhist? Buddhist. No, I'm spelling that wrong. Food hells. No, there's not. Not really. Not in a way that counts. However, there is another. I can't believe I forgot about this. There's another World of Darkness book um, called Kindred of the East. So the big, huge thing in World of Darkness was like Vampire the Masquerade. And it was very, very much inspired by Anne Rice. It was very much like this kind of romantic vampire of like, oh, I'm gonna be the, dashing, suave vampire in the night, wooing people off their feet and so on. Not always, but it kind of leaned into that a little bit. And there were like really disgusting vampires and really violent vampires and whatnot. But like, it really mysticized the idea of like, what is it to be a vampire in modern times? That's kind of a thing. There was the setting Kindred of the East about Kuei-jin, who are many. It's a melange, a plethora, if you will, of the various Eastern vampires. And the idea of the Kuei-jin is that they're people who died, went to a Buddhist, hell, and were pulled back. So basically, they died, they went to Buddhist hell, they came back into their own bodies and kind of brought a little bit of that hell energy with them. Elemental, ghost like, tied to. I don't want to say feng shui, so I'll just say geomancy. So there's a lot of talk about Buddhist hell in that system and setting, because you can go there, and if things go bad for you, you can get stuck there. And the whole concept of Kuei-jin is that it's not like it's not so much like a spiritual damnation in the way that vampire is. And like, by the way, the central idea of Vampire the Masquerade is that Cain, as in from Cain and Abel, cursed by God, first vampire. So basically, anytime Cain made a vampire, it's like holy hell, this is like ridiculously powerful vampire. And then his children or childer begat 7. Like Cain made 3, those 3 made 7, and those 7 effectively became the kind of progenitor vampires for a bunch of different clans, and then you get into this whole thing where there's more than 7. But I digress. Crying shame because way back when I was first watching Saint Seiya and Shaka's casting the Bronze Saints to Buddhist hells, I damn near pissed myself. Particularly, the final reveal still makes me shudder. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember that part, and just all that talk about the Buddhist hells was wacky and terrifying. Because yeah, like nobody wants to go through that. Like nobody wants. Like they made normal hell look like a walk in the park. It really did seem like one of the most terrifying things you could go through. But that all happens here. Like there are all of those hells. In fact, they are called the 1,000 hells. Like that's how many there are, and you can get stuck in them. But more importantly, as I'm talking about this, like so the idea of like these kind of pseudo Buddhist vampires is a Kuei-jin has a tremendous potential, whereas a vampire is just going to get more and more evil and degenerate. A Kuei-jin has a path, and that path might be evil, and it might not. But if they follow the path and reach its conclusion, then they are, and I'm going to butcher this, so I'm going to look up the spelling for it. And I'm talking about this a lot because it fascinates me. This is a really cool concept. Let me see. Sorry, I'm looking this up. And I never say it correctly either. I've heard it said bodhisattva, and I've heard it said bodhisattva. But if you reach the end of your path as a Kuei-jin, you can become a bodhisattva. And basically you have attained perfect enlightenment. Now, the reason I bring all of this up is that it happens rarely, but it has happened where a Kuei-jin becomes a bodhisattva, and they're basically like these amazingly powerful creatures. And you had one of the 3rd generation vampires, basically the grandson of Cain, called Ravana or Ravnos, or any number of different names. So this was like basically like a really powerful vampire demon that could manipulate like illusions and so on. Woke up and threatened to destroy untold swaths of area. Like basically was threatening the entire Middle East. So there was a prophecy that 3 Kuei-jin would defeat Ravnos. Now, this may seem like I'm just going on about a bunch of disparate things, but here we go. This is going to make a lot of sense in a second. So there's wizards, and then there's technocracy. Basically, the technocracy is like the wizardry of science. A lot of people kind of blame them for turning the world into this cold, uncaring place. The technocracy does a lot to keep supernaturals in check. So the technocracy decided to butt its nose into the business of the Kuei-jin and Ravnos. So it's like these 4 massively powerful vampires, 3 of them being the Eastern kind and 1 of them being like the traditional Cain and Abel kind. So the technocracy blew up a spiritual nuclear weapon. That sounds really crazy, but it's true. It's exactly what they did. They killed Ravnos and the Kuei-jin, ruined the prophecy, and cracked the prison of the abyss, letting fallen angels out of there prison. I guess I should say crack the abyss, letting fallen angels out of their prison. So there's this really crazy whirling story about all of these different supernatural elements coming together and conspiring to make things happen. So you've got your Buddhist vampires, you've got your Western vampires coming together, having a big war. The techno wizards decide to get involved, and in the process, they do destroy the threat. They screw up a prophecy, and they let a big majority of the fallen angels out of what should be hell. Let's see. You will be torn apart by rabid animals daily, and you will be eaten alive by eternal hungry. I'm reading this. By eternally hungry revenants, and you will be cast to the world of man in abstract emotion, where you will constantly linger on the verge of insanity, and you cannot leave Buddha's palm. And I was like, oh my god, what the fuck am I watching? And yeah, like there's horrendous things in there. Like I think there's a hell in there somewhere in the Saint Seiya one where it's like you're basically punished by becoming like an eternally hungry cannibal, and you just eat anything that you can get your hands on, and that's just how you exist for like hundreds of years. It's horrifying. My friend finally responded, and it's either Malpheus or Mikaboshi, and I can't remember which. I guess it was neither. It was a Yama King, but I don't think it had a name. But at any rate, hopefully I answered your question. In the world of darkness, the thousand hells do in fact exist, and people who are consigned to them are not in for a good time. Oh, Shaka. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I know we're spoiling Saint Seiya, but I mean, I don't think anyone here is going to be too upset. Um, but like, did Ikki go through the hells? Like, did he actually have to like live through them to come back? I was never quite sure on that, or if he just kind of like dipped his toe in the first one and went, "Nah, I'm coming back because I'm the Phoenix." But all right, I'm gonna do one last check. I was gonna do like stat block on something, and I was talking about it and trying to figure it out. Um, let's just call it Undead Juggernaut. Not sure what I want to do, but think about it. I just want something that's like as big as Godzilla, maybe more quadrupedal, and undead and creepy. But I'll think about that for next time. But yeah, if anybody is watching and has the ability to ask a question, please feel free to ask a question. If you have not followed me, please follow me. And I hope that you would like to watch me again, and that you will be back next week. I was a little late today, but I got here about 7:45 ish. Mountain Standard, and I'll be back 7:30 next week if all goes well. Answering your questions and planning for my D&D games. Hopefully, I'll get to run more of them this week than I did last week, but we will see. Basically, Iki gave Zero shits because he'd seen some shit at the island where he trained. Oh yeah, he did. Was subjected to the technique that makes you hallucinate your worst fear thousands of times. Oh wow. So did he just like go through it and was like, meh? Oh, Saint Seiya. It's like you were the best wrestling anime that just didn't stop being a wrestling anime so far in. But yeah, we might end the stream in a little bit. I'll give some thought to next week, maybe doing like some stats on some kind of undead juggernaut, which should be fun. Gotta think of something big. Maybe I'll do like a big giant crocodile, kind of like that SCP one, but bigger and not as weird. Something like that. I don't know. I'll think about it. I'd do a giant turtle, but giant turtles are kind of played out. Yep, if I recall correctly, he was just like, been there, done that, bitch. I am the Phoenix. And Chaco was like, oh no. Oh, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I gotta figure out if I can watch it to finish the whole Norse arc. I started the Norse arc and it was pretty fun. It was filler, if I'm not mistaken, but it seemed fun for what it was. It was really funny watching a bunch of 14-year-old boys fighting Thor, and he was like 18 feet tall or something. But here we are talking about Saint Seiya, which I would love to do more of, but I might do that off stream because I love Saint Seiya and I love talking about Saint Seiya. Shaka tends to break out the Tenbu Orin against the most inappropriate opponents. He does it versus the dead gold saints, and Saga's like, "Motherfucker, we dead already." That's funny. But all right, I'm presuming that the people in my chat are obviously, other than Looney, that the people in my chat are bots, and as such, please have a pleasant daily cycle. And I hope that you come back to bot another day. But for now, I think we're going to go ahead and stop the stream. Thank you to everyone who has watched or who will watch. And remember, as always, that I plan and play games for you. Good night, everybody.